This is a recorded lecture for the IB-DP Topic A3.3.6. This is HL content, this is design and theory, and we're looking specifically at gears today. So big picture, we need to be able to analyze mechanical movements in products and their impact in different manufacturing techniques used for producing different products. From the IB, you need to understand that gears transmit rotary motion from one gear shaft to another, and they have a number of teeth. We'll talk more about that later. You need to be able to identify the different types of gear systems, so specifically spur, bevel, rack and pinion, worm, ratchet and pawl, idler, and compound gears, and their components, and understand how they are used and provide examples. A gear is a toothed wheel that interlocks with another to transmit motion or change the speed and or direction of motion. And you can see several of the gear types that we need to pay attention to here. We have the bevel gear, we have the spur gear, worm gear, and rack and pinion. And we'll look at the other type, the idler and the compound gear, in some of the next slides. When we look at the parts of a gear, we can see that this is the axle hole. This is where the axis or the shaft of the gear will be located. These are the teeth of the gear. You need to pay attention to the pressure angle of the gear. They need to be the same, and we'll see that with the spur gear. So for instance, here is the spur gear, and you can see that these two spur gears right here have the same pressure angle. You can see it says PA20 here and PA20 here. A spur gear is a toothed gear where the teeth project parallel to the gear's axis. So you can imagine that the axle, the shaft, or the axis of this gear runs straight through the center of the hole in this gear. So right down the middle here. And you can see that the teeth are projected as compared to something like a helical gear, where that wouldn't be the case. In a helical gear, the axis is coming out this way, but the teeth are projected at a different angle, so not a parallel. Spur gears are used everywhere motion needs to be transferred between parallel shafts, from simple household items like washing machines and clocks to complex machinery like automotive transmissions, construction equipment, cranes, excavators, conveyors, pumps, and machine tools. They're easy to make and they're efficient, and they're good at changing speed and torque, especially at low speed. Let's talk about bevel gears. So a bevel gear is a pair of toothed rotating gears used to transfer power between the two gear shafts at an angle, usually 90 degrees from the original. It's going to be spinning this shaft, and this gear allow it to turn that rotation in at 90 degrees. And so using a bevel gear, you can have this gear turning at 90 degrees to this gear. So you can imagine that happening here. And this is a car's differential. It's quite famous for that. So bevel gears are used to change the direction of power, most famously in automotive differentials, but also in marine propulsion. So if you think of rudders and things like that, aerospace like helicopter transmissions and landing gears, heavy industrial machinery like tunnel borers or printing press, pumps, conveyors. It transmits high torque at an angle, often at 90 degrees. They are essentially where power needs to be redirected from a vertical to a horizontal shaft, like in hand drills or shaft-driven bikes, or to allow wheels to turn at different speeds. A rack and pinion is a mechanical device using a fixed bar that engages with a smaller toothed wheel that conveys rotary to linear motion. And so you can imagine here that if this gear is spinning in this direction, it's going to push the rack in either the A or B in the horizontal direction. So essentially what we're doing is taking a rotational motion and making it into a linear motion. This part is called the pinion. This part is called the rack. And you can see that this is often used in things like robot gantries. This is a gantry. So this robot will be able to move back and forth on this gantry, and it's going to be using something like this rack and pinion to do that. Rack and pinion gears convert rotary motion to linear motion, or vice versa, and are used in automotive steering, industrial automation, so things like robots and CNC machines and actuators. They are used for railways, for steep inclines. You'll sometimes hear of cog railways where you'll have a rack and pinion where the train is driven up the hill using the rack and pinion system. Essentially, the rail will be the rack, and then there will be a pinion on the train that will drive it up a steep incline. You see them in stair lifts, elevators, garage doors, valve controls. They provide precise, controlled motion in many heavy duty and precision applications. Let's talk about worm gears. So worm gears are a mechanical component typically formed as a threaded shaft that interlocks with a toothed gear or worm wheel. And you can see actually one of the places that we most commonly see a worm gear is tuning pegs for guitars. And this allows for very fine adjustments. So worm gears are common in applications needing high torque, speed reduction, self-locking, such as elevators, hoists, conveyor systems, and security gates. They prevent loads from reversing. They're also found in machine tools, robotics, automotive steering for precise, quiet, right angle power transmission. Their ability to achieve large reductions in a compact space makes them ideal for applications like tuning pegs on instruments and telescope mounts. So in other words, you can turn this part of the tuning peg quite a bit, and it's going to turn this wheel not as much. And that's where we get the really fine adjustments that we need when we're tuning an instrument. Let's talk about ratchets and pawls. This is a mechanical device that allows motion in only one direction. The pawl fits into the teeth of the toothed ratchet and prevents it from rotating backwards while allowing a rotation forward. So anytime you hear something kind of clicking, for instance, the turnstiles that you see at subways, those are going to be using a ratchet and pawl, and it prevents backward motion. So for instance, fishing reels would use a ratchet and pawl. Anytime you hear that sort of clicking sound, that's going to be a ratchet and pawl. And we use this when we want one-way rotation. It prevents backward movement, enabling controlled stepped motion. We can find it in socket wrenches, winches, fishing reels, handbrakes, automatic transmissions, clocks, turnstiles, extension ladders. It provides a click-by-click advancement or locking a load into place. An idler gear is a gear in a gear train that is used between a driving and driven gear. It is used to change the rotational direction of the driven gear or to fill a gap between the gears without affecting the speed ratio. So if you look at this particular gear, the A gear, it's going to be rotating in this direction, which is going to cause the B gear to rotate in this direction and then the C gear to rotate in this direction. Now, if we didn't have this idler gear here, let's say that A and C were touching, then A would be rotating counterclockwise this way, and C would be rotating clockwise, so in the opposite direction, because that's how gears work. When A turns, the gear next to it is going to turn in the opposite direction. So in this case, counterclockwise to clockwise. And an idler gear allows you to go counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. It allows you to change the direction of the driven gear. Idle gears are most commonly used in automotive transmission, like reverse gears, bicycles, printers, conveyor systems, and they change the direction of rotation, bridge large distances between shafts, and maintain consistent spacing without altering the speed ratio between the main input and output gears, ensuring that there is a smooth operation and functionality. That's the other thing I neglected to mention here. As A turns, B is going to turn a little bit faster, but it's going to turn C at the same rate as A. So A and C will be traveling at the same rate. B will be traveling faster. Now, a compound gear comprises two or more gears forming a connected system. The output of one gear is used as the input for another gear in the same system. So when we're looking here, I've got the driver gear here. So this would be turning. Now, this gray gear and this red gear would be attached together. So they are stacked on top of each other. They're glued or welded or attached to each other. So they spin at the same time. As this driver turns, it's going to input into the gray gear, which is going to output into the red gear, which will then input into this sort of greenish colored gear, which will output into this teal colored gear, which will input into this gray colored gear and output into this red colored gear, and then input into the driven gear here at the end, this greenish colored gear. And again, this teal and green colored gear would be attached. This red and this gray colored gear would be attached. And they're stacked on top of each other, which you can kind of see in this picture. And that's what makes them a compound gear system. Compound gear trains are most commonly used in devices needing large speed or torque changes, especially automotive transmissions. This could be either manual or automatic, clocks and watches, machine tools, allowing precise control and varying driving conditions, accurate timekeeping, and controlling tool movements and spindle speed, respectively. And this effectively manages power flow in a compact space. And that's why we use compound gears. Planetary gears are a gear set that uses a central sun gear. So that's this right here. You can see where it says sun. And then it has orbiting planet gears, which are these three right here, and an internally toothed ring gear to provide high torque and significant speed control in compact designs. So one of the key things with planetary gears is you get this high torque. Now, when we're talking about gear-driven systems, we need to think about a mechanical system used to transmit power from a driver part to a driven part, often to increase or decrease the rotational speed of the output. So here's the driver and here's the driven. And you would notice if you actually saw this one functioning that this turns many more times than this one. So turning this quite a few times will turn this one once. In order to figure this out, you have to figure out the gear ratio. So this is the relationship between two meshed gears, showing how many times the input or driving gear turns for one rotation of the output or driven gear. It's calculated by dividing the teeth of the driven gear by the teeth of the driver gear. So it's output teeth over input teeth. So if this is our driver right here and this is our driven gear right here, we can figure out the gear ratio in this gear set right here. So we can see that this gear right here has 8 teeth and this gear has 16 teeth. So we need to put the output teeth over the input teeth. So this is the output and this is the input. So that would be 16 over 8, which is 2 over 1. Then we have this. Now this is acting as the driver and this one would act as the driven. And so we would put 24 over 16, which is 2 over 3. And then we can multiply these two gear ratios together. So the 2 over 1 and the 3 over 2. So 2 over 1 times 3 over 2 is going to give us 3 over 1. And so what this means is that every time this gear turns 3 times, it's going to turn this one once. And we can actually see that in this little video. So if you watch this video, you'll see that the driver gear, as it turns, this one here, is going to turn 3 times for this gear turning once. I'm not going to show you the whole video, but you get the point, and you can watch it and count if you'd like to. Now, what's the gear ratio of this compound gear set then? So we need to really look carefully at that, but you will be taking each individual gear set as you go through and figuring out what is the ratio for them. Okay, this is the driver, this is the driven. I'll let you figure that out. And you should notice that it's quite a large number. All right, thank you for watching.